So, welcome to the Cosmic Powerhouse and another episode of Let's Create a Healing Temple Together. And today my guest is Lee Sargeant. And Lee is a real businessman because he has 45 years experience in business in various ways. And he is the CEO and founder of LWS Catalyst Consulting for startups and for scale-ups and mid-cap and in IT and high-tech. But he has so many more activities in the world of business, and he will tell us today why business ethics is important and why a new way of leadership or business education is important to bring into the world to really manage this change and transformation where we are now in the here. So welcome, Lee, to the Cosmic Powerhouse and Let's Create a Healing Temple show.
Well, Manuela, thanks for having me. I will connect this cosmic space so that we're also connected in the universe. Again, thank you for having me. And I'm excited to do this. So you just guide me through the process and I'll do the best I can, I assure you.
Okay. Thank you, Lee. So before we start going more into the conversation, I would like to open a sacred space for us because we are in space, like we see in the background of me. So I want to open a sacred space in the shamanic way, and it's just to open your soul bubble around, and I give it to you that we are in a safe space all together, also all the audience who is watching us right now. So
I will just mimic you.
Okay. Just fold the hands in front of your chest, of your heart, and deep breathe in and put your hands up in the sky to your soul chakra and put the bubble of energy around you, like a golden bubble around us. And now I put it over our space, our virtual room. And let's have 3 times a deep breath to ground, like we grow roots into the earth. And another time. And the third time. Grounding. Okay, so Lee, you're such a long time in business, and I guess you have so much experience with also the lectures at the universities and talking to students, but also to many senior leaders. How actually come that you started this journey in business? So how did you find the passion to work in business and stick with it over such a long time? What was the initial moment where you decided to do so?
I must say that as my father was in the military, we traveled a great deal and lived in many countries. So from day one, I was born into an environment that every 3 years we were in another location. So I think that was you're just born, I think, in an environment, and how you shape it and mold it is a journey you then undertake. So I think that the most captivating time and inspirational time came when I started university in the US. And this was just a brilliant time. It was a time of inspiration, a time of intellectual development, a time of social development. And there I met many international students, and that's where I function extremely well. So I did a bachelor's at the University of Maryland. I spent a year at the American College of Switzerland in Lausanne, beautiful location up in the Swiss Alps, French Swiss Alps. And up there again, just exposed to international students from all over the world. I went then back to New York and did an MBA at NYU and Pace University, and majored in corporate finance and strategic planning. So that was the journey, and thereafter, I don't want to name all the stations. I don't want to boast, but we will run out of time. But it suffices to say that I spent 45 years as a manager and senior executive, uh, mostly in the U.S., but mostly in Europe. I've had European-wide functions with companies like HP, Digital Equipment, just to name a few, Sun Microsystems, Fujitsu, Siemens, Nixdorf, PricewaterhouseCoopers, where I was a manager for 3.5 years. So it was a journey that was happening. And I continued that journey throughout a very professional career for 45 years. And I retired about 3 years ago, but it's not retirement, it's just a transition for me. So at that time, I was firmly implanted in continuing to do and be active in some way in consulting in an international environment. I founded LWS Catalyst, which, as you said, is a company focusing on startups, scale-ups, and mid-cap IT and high-tech companies. Why IT and high-tech? Because I have 40 years plus in experience in that and in fintech. So about a year and a half ago, I just throughout my meditations, I'll get into that in a moment, but I was inspired by lecturing. I thought, what a great thing to be able to lecture MBA and master level students. So long story short, I went and interviewed with business schools here in Munich and started lecturing a year ago. And I don't want to do advertising, but I will say European business schools. All the courses are in English, and I lecture MBA and master level business students. And here, and I can say for the past 3 years, this is something I can clearly recommend for those of you who are near retirement or in retirement, or even those of you in your 40s, to have a clear vision about doing things that you're passionate about. And I am really passionate about lecturing and advising. It's that combination. It's like I'm not going to say the yin and the yang, but it just comes together so well. And I must say that it is different than being an executive, because you kind of have an open space and you fill that space with your own focus and you draw upon your experience. But my students, who clearly are our future CEOs, CFOs, COOs, I treat them as managers, and I make a firm commitment to them right from the outset. And that is, my commitment to you is to transition you from MBA and master students to business professionals. And I do that. I bring in the practical experience. They're so hungry. They ask me so many questions that the 3 hours of lecture time is difficult to stick to the timeline because, well,
oh, wow.
Professor,
That's wonderful to hear, right? Because we have so much information normally in space, but it is not about the information, right? It is really about the human experience, and that you experience someone who has really that, yeah, life experience, business experience, and can directly ask to, yeah.
Well, to answer your question,
yeah.
sorry, and one of the things you'll have to discipline me to stick to our time and to be able to answer your questions. But this journey, I've always had for a number of years, a kind of a mantra to develop my best self, and the best self in the here and now. So yes, you can reflect upon the past, you can project into the future, but the best self is shaping continuously in the here and the now. But the best self is just a continuous journey. And as you know, in Zen, the journey begins with each step, and each step is in each day, each moment. And I just love this. I live in the moment.
Yeah, that fits very much to my shamanic journey. So because also here we have the present moment, and we know we can, yeah, only then do our best and bring all our potential and all possibilities are really living in the present moment. And I love that you as such a businessman with so much experience, is telling us about that, because I don't recognize that so much in the business world, that people are really reflecting this present moment and the importance of that. Because very often in the business world, there's so much stress, there's so much fight or flight mode and pressure and financial pressure and so on. So as a intuitive person, I can really feel your calm energy. And yeah, you were already talking about meditation. So that's really intriguing to know. How are you practicing that? So we are also talking about the healing, right? In our Let's Create a Healing Temple show, and going beyond. So also to recognize our spiritual being. So what is it, what brought you to that path to do that in a daily practice?
Well, already in the bachelor's program, 4 years, in the US and in many Anglo-Saxon countries, even if you're a business major, you must spend 2 years in practicing social sciences. So you take courses in psychology, philosophy, sociology, anthropology, history. And I will get into that because I notice it's a further question downstream. But that influenced my daily habits. And already in university, I started meditating in the bathtub on Sundays, then transitioned to meditating daily. So I have been more or less meditating for 40 years. But now, since I'm in this semi-retirement mode and in a much more, let's say, I'm not going to say stress less. I have now much more healthier stress than I had before. And in that context, for the past 2 years, I meditate daily, first thing when I wake up in the morning, 20 minutes, no exceptions, Monday through Sunday, 20 minutes. I do what we did initially, focus on my breathing, then feel my body. And then in the third phase, I have very much been influenced by Deepak Chopra, and I exercise his mantra, which is easy to remember. In daily living, it is, I go through my days feeling lighthearted and carefree, knowing all is well.
Wonderful. No, Deepak Chopra. So I did many courses. So I love his voice and also his mantras. So I can absolutely, align with that. Thank you. So talking about vision also, and the spiritual side and creating health in the world, what would you say is your view then on maybe also a holistic healthcare system? So talking about business there and leadership, what would you say from your experience and your way also with bringing in the spiritual side? How can it look like? How can this vision look like? How can we create that also from a business perspective, not only for the treatment or solutions we have here in patient treatment? How can we bridge that currently? So I feel it's still, we have these different worlds, right? We have this world of spiritual healing, and it's still called the alternative medicine. It's a question, is it only an alternative or should it be the medicine? But we have the spiritual world, spiritual healing, we have the Western medicine. So how would you see a vision, or how would your vision look like to bridge that? Because right now we are facing so many challenges and limitations in the healthcare systems, also with lack of staff, financial pressures, and so on. So there's a lot of things to do from a business perspective. So what is your vision on that when you're bringing in all your experience and your wisdom?
That's a very good question. Let me say this, that already during the meditation in the morning, what I practice, because it's the most challenging thing in meditation, is to stay focused. And focus comes through breathing, it comes through feeling your body. And in that time when your mind wanders off, and thoughts come in from the left, the right, I call these things fuzzies. It's like little bushes. And I like to see, I'd like to see a really strong olive tree, which, you know, the olive tree can be 1.5, 2 meters wide, very strong roots, but the fuzzies are little bushes that kind of show up around it. And the important thing when you're meditating is to push the fuzzies aside. And I tell my students that it's like spanning a bow and arrow. You span the bow and you let the arrow go. And the arrow takes away all the fuzzies and it goes to where you guide it. And I mentioned something like that in LinkedIn. I'll get into that later. But getting rid of the fuzzies. And as for the healthcare, I understand the complexities, but one has to put the complexities aside. Those are the fuzzies. They're there, but if you get preoccupied with them, they preoccupy you. Also, what I think is I am an absolute visionary. Visions are so important. I do this with my students. I do this with the CEOs that I consult. Vision is paramount. You can have companies that have a great strategy, a great structure, and perhaps a great culture, but vision and culture are absolute paramount to the success, sustainable success of any company. A company without a vision is like being in the Sahara Desert, having plenty of water, but no compass. The vision is your compass, and the vision is refreshed, maybe on a daily basis, monthly, weekly, it doesn't matter, but the vision is very important. It carries us forward. So for the healthcare environment, I would look at a 360-degree approach, if I can call it that, which focuses on 3 core elements. The physical, meaning feeling great, a well-trained body. The psychological, which is the balancing in the here and the now, which we discussed. And the spiritual, connected to God, the universe, and the here and the now. And I think that the more you practice meditation, the more you feel that connectivity. And that's why I do it daily. So for the healthcare system, I would focus on those elements: physical, psychological, spiritual. And in doing so, you take those roots and you can translate it into the healthcare systems that exist, which I find, even with the great healthcare system in Germany, I find the process, yes, the coverage is great, but it's also very complex. The sending of the bills, the applying for this and applying for that. Now they have updated the systems where you can actually use digitalization and data to upload receipts and things like this. But I find that the healthcare system should have like a central convergence point where, based on your visits to doctors, to experts, it goes into a AI center, if you will, to update this, where that then takes a more holistic view of what it is that you're feeling, experiencing, and the connectivity. And that would be, for me, a very, very strong recommendation in light of the advancements in AI for any healthcare company. I would see that as a major breakthrough in services. The current service is transactional, and AI-based is again 360 and much more effective in my view.
Yeah, so there's a lot of discussion around that for a long time,
Yes.
also with patient records and the
Yes.
card.
I understand the
So
sensitivity of that. I understand.
yeah, sensitivity, but sometimes I wonder if it's really the case that the patients do not want it. So I experience patients, people talking about more open than the media would tell us. So.
Yes.
So because the patients see the benefit of having all that critical information in one place and really feel the safety which is coming with it. I don't experience so many people who are really so much concerned about the data. So, and when we see what is putting out data through social media or all our subscriptions and so on. So yeah, of course it must be a safe handling, but there are solutions for it. I will have actually a guest who is also experienced in that field, and it will be, I guess, very interesting for our audience to hear all this interview, because it's about actually patient record data and how to handle that and use it. So thank you very much for that perspective on healthcare. And yeah, you repeated this central kind of system, which is where the focus goes, the energy flows. So it's really so important where we put the focus, like when you say, imagine the arrow. You were also talking about the social sciences. So social sciences and the courses and how the universities are having that on the agenda, mandatory or not. That would be the question. So how's it actually right now at the universities? What is your experience in the different countries, as you are very internationally connected? So how do they implement the social sciences courses, and what could we learn from it for the business leadership educational training?
Well, I've been lecturing now for a year, and again, MBA and master level students. And I clearly see the gap, meaning that virtually 95% have had no courses in psychology, sociology, anthropology, philosophy. And again, having taken those courses early on in the bachelor's program, I became fascinated with philosophy. And I had excellent professors in New York and in Maryland. And I was introduced, of course, to Plato, yes, but really frame-breaking, iconic individuals such as David Hume, René Descartes, Jean-Paul Sartre, Alan Watts. The list is endless. And so fascinated was I that it was very helpful for me in philosophy to understand that there's a term called epistemology, which is the quest for knowledge, under which all the schools of philosophical thought, whether it was Socrates or modern day thinkers, are placed under. Now, under doesn't mean subservient. It just means that it creates an umbrella under which man's quest for knowledge fits. And philosophy is about the quest for knowledge. And the basic principle, like the notion of the cogito, the notion of whether existence precedes essence or essence precedes existence. Now, as a younger person, I'd have laughed at that. Who cares? Well, René Descartes, for those of you who know, and if not, I can highly recommend. He's long past, so there's no marketing here. But he has a book. It's about 120 pages, and it's called his 7 Meditations. And in there, he addresses his whole posture around the notion of the cogito, and it's brilliant. And René Descartes was not only a brilliant philosopher, but he was the godfather in mathematics of trigonometry, French by birth, but an incredible influencer. And understanding these 7 meditations is such an exciting journey. And we won't have time to go into it. But when you ask me how I presently see this in universities here in Europe, I'm afraid that in the bachelor's program, unless you major in those fields, they're not addressed. And I see that as a major deficit, because I think that by the time, I have a slide that I show my MBA students, by the time you reach graduate level, you should have had 1 to 2 years of psychology, sociology, anthropology, philosophy, because that gives you the holistic framework. And only then, I think, is it appropriate to start graduate school, where you have the fundamental courses for business majors, accounting 1, 2, 3, intermediate, cost, tax, accounting. I took them because I was thinking about doing the CPA and decided to abandon it, but I took all the required accounting courses. But in addition to that, yes, economics, micro, macro, but again, psychology, sociology, philosophy. And when you bring that into graduate school, you are a very good candidate for expanding your preparation for professional life. And I have to add this. I find it incredible that many senior managers have not been exposed to this. That means that their learning has been by osmosis. And while osmosis is a good thing, it's not all encompassing and it can lead to a lot of defocus. So I strongly encourage and I try to incorporate um, uh, philosophers into my MBA lectures, not as an entire course, but and sorry if I need to focus, but Hegel, for example, an iconic German philosopher, his dialectical materialism sounds wow, wow, wow. But basically, he said history repeats itself, much like business cycles. And I encourage anyone listening to this podcast, you figure out what cycle we're in and have an awareness about that. I'm not going to get into political views, but people like Hegel were iconic and they still are relevant. That's why I say philosophy is just brilliant, as is psychology. And then I will stop my excursus because it sounds like a lecture. But if you don't understand what the cortex, what its function is, and the amygdala, it's so difficult to understand human behavior. And if you don't understand norms and values and how groups and the shape and are shaped by norms and values, how can you understand managing groups of people? And that's my appeal to anyone out there. If you're still in university, please do take these courses because they will be important as a manager and future leader. Okay. Question hopefully answered.
Thank you so much. I love your focus also on philosophy. So, and when we look at the old wisdom schools, right, the ancient wisdom schools, it was for a good reason that we had all these connections and beautiful things were coming out of that, yeah, where we are still have Pythagoras under us. So, and so many more, you mentioned a lot of the philosophers and also in astrophysics, yeah, looking at the stars here. So although here we see many of them who are then, yeah, combining that with philosophy, because how would you understand cosmos? Yeah, how would you understand all of this without that different kind of perspectives and trying to build a picture in your mind and explain for yourself and get a feeling for it. And I can so much feel the same, that we're on the same page here.
And when I look into the stars,
yeah.
Astrology, unfortunately, is not a competence of mine, but I do something very simple. When I see a star, I look at the star and I say, thank you. Thank you for shining.
Wow.
Thank you for being present.
That is so beautiful. Yeah, the stars. So I'm working also as a cosmic healer, so in my energy medicine practice. And I was able, going back to my soul wisdom and really channel also, I know that is woo-woo for many people, but for me, it's just reality. So that I was able to connect to my wisdom and actually, yeah, know what the stars like Arcturus would tell us about healing techniques and advanced technology. And it's really very interesting to connect to the stars. And like you say, when you just stargazing and putting attention to it, that they are existing, and enjoy the light. And through the light, you would get the information as well, because energy is all data, it's all information. And that's actually where the stars can help us very much in our life here as well. So we should not underestimate. It's nice shining and gives us light, but it's so much more where people can tap into it. So it has so much more power, what is also helping us, supporting us in different areas of life. So thank you for mentioning the stars and the cosmos. Yeah, so how else can we empower leaders in business to create a healthier world and more healing? We were talking about the present moment. We were talking about, looking at the curriculum at the universities and bringing more philosophy in, more the spiritual side of us. So you were also mentioning vision and innovation. So maybe tapping more into innovation. What are you thinking would be necessary? So maybe 3 skills today's leadership must have to be able to really innovate in the world and to bring innovation, which is also connected to the value for humanity or in a greater context. Because sometimes I have the feeling, of course, we can do things maybe, and we try to just prove we can do it, we can bring it further. But the question will be if it is really solving our problems right now and for the future, if it's really bringing us benefit and value in a greater context. So in terms of sustainability, in terms of reducing all these struggles, health issues and so on. So what do you think, what would be the 3 skills which we need as today's leaders to really make change happen with valuable innovation?
Of course, that's a very profound question. And in fact, in many of the postings that I do on LinkedIn, this is not marketing, but I post almost every day because I through meditations, I have so many thoughts, but I'm also using these thoughts in posts because I do plan on writing a book. It's always been one of my goals around leadership, grassroots leadership, I call it. But to try to embrace innovation. I mean, innovation has always been that component that creates change, that creates new insights, new technologies, and so forth. And not a but, innovation is part of and should be part of an ongoing process. You never stop and cease to innovate, no matter what definition you apply, but basically innovation certainly entails taking the current status quo of whatever it is, technology, of chemicals, of whatever, and making a valuable contribution such that you move the field and the benefit of people forward. That should be part of. Now, to put that into context of leadership, on my website, this sounds like too much marketing. No, as a person and someone who deals daily with CEOs, there's something called organizational alignment, and this is a leadership skill that I look to practice and to mentor. And that organizational alignment is the alignment of mission, vision, strategy, structure, and culture. Now, these could be nice statements on a website, and often that's exactly what I see. Our mission is, our vision is, and you can feel that sometimes what is there is heartless, but yet for some companies, which I cannot mention and I shouldn't, it is a real conviction. And so what do I mean by organizational alignment? Imagine, I have so many slides and visualizations or visuals that I use, but if you imagine a staircase, mission, what business are we in? Vision, where do we want to be in 3 to 5 years? Strategy, what are the quantitative, qualitative goals to get us there? Structure, how are we going to structure to be successful in implementing our strategy? Culture, what is the behavior? What are the value systems and norms in our company that help us in moving our company forward? How do we create a positive culture? And structure I already mentioned. But the last thing, and I've consulted many companies, I also ask them for something very operational. Can I say your compensation architecture? And they're astoundingly, even really Fortune 500 companies, when I look at their strategy and look at their compensation architecture, they're not connected. So a key skill, and that is very self-encompassing, is the ability, and I call that a leadership agenda. And again, it's the ability to align mission, vision, strategy, structure, culture with the compensation architecture. that as a framework, and then in terms of individuals. And I practice and teach this to my MBA students. What is it? Because if I say to you, my commitment is to transition you from MBAs and master students to business professionals, well, what is that? Well, here, business professionals is, first of all, selfless leadership. Now, unfortunately, I don't know too many who practice that, right? I see.
So is selfless more towards servant leadership? Because that's a term which I hear very often.
Sorry, what was your question?
Is selfless leadership, to understand that, is it connected to that servant leadership? So to more looking to serve?
Yes, it's like being a mirror, okay? You just reflect, but the mirror itself has content, but you reflect it to whatever the mirror is, and the mirror is showing the external and internal environment of a company. So external, the stakeholders and the things that we cover in Pestle, which is a tool that we use to analyze the external environment, and the internal environment. The internal environment is mission, vision, strategy, structure, culture. And as a leader, you need to know how to navigate those things. And I have a great matrix that I use where on the horizontal, I have mission, vision, strategy, structure, culture. And on the vertical, I have consistency. I have viability, meaning can you implement it, and is it aligned? And alignment is like interlocking wheels. And I use that matrix to determine where are core fundamental problems in the company. Is it because the strategy is not aligned with the mission? Is it that the vision is not aligned with the culture? And there are very sophisticated techniques. I like to keep it simple. But at the end of the day, I believe in turnkeying approaches in my mentoring. And that is, I transition those skills to my clients and the companies that I mentor. So this professional is selfless leadership. It's transparency. It's honesty, integrity, attraction. I think it's important for a leader, male, female, irrespective of gender, to radiate in their physical presence. Just like you, if I don't mind complimenting you, you look like a professional. I would have no question to say, there's Manuela, she's a professional. And I think in your physical appearance, you should do that. Now, I know these days it's cool to wear t-shirts and look like you were born on the beach. But I still think that that pizzazz of feeling comfortable in front of a camera, in front of an audience. But I feel as we do this, I feel perfectly comfortable. I have some notes here, but you notice that I'm totally off script. I can just shift gears thumb through, and that's because I have something called conviction.
Mm-hmm. And isn't it also the inner connection? So I can feel you have a lot of inner connection and stability. And we were already talking about your meditation practice. So
yes,
wouldn't it be the additional skill to really come back to that inner stability, inner connection? Because if you're focusing too much or only outside, how can we find this tree-like being, right? So that we are really grounded, rooted, and we have that stability. And of course there are storms coming up and moving us around, but if you really build up this strong tree, solid tree, then it doesn't matter. So you will stand there also in the biggest storm, right? So what can you recommend here to business leaders, maybe to find their way into? Because I feel there's so much distance still to spiritual living, and many people see it as woo-woo or something else. So, but it has so much tradition, and it's you can explain it in many different ways from the many different cultures, but it's just to find that inner connection, right? So it is really to find your own way to connect to your soul and your inner being, and of course your higher self, to have that inner guidance, and don't be so much don't need the validation from outside, or only look, how others do navigate you. So you are the navigator when you are a leader, right?
Well, with all due respect to leaders, and for me, leaders are mid-managers up to CEOs, okay? Because I believe that if you're a manager, you're managing certainly people. And with that, your default is you're a leader. How good you are is depending upon, again, your inner strength and your clear focus, and upon those skills. I can't emphasize them enough. It's unfortunate. I spent years with companies, but it took me a long time. It wasn't until my consulting days with PricewaterhouseCoopers, where through pressure, where I had to do due diligence for companies, 6 at a time. That's where I came up with this mission, vision, strategy. I used that checklist and that matrix to find out what's the problem here. What's the problem in alignment? And I created that. That was through pressure of having to do due diligence preparation for mergers and acquisitions, where I had to find a tool, and that's the tool. So without being complicated, I'm going to say with due respect to managers, let's say to leaders, I found that the further up I grew in the management hierarchy, from director to vice president, I found it to be increasingly Darwinistic. And there was always this inherent pressure to look tough, to walk into any meeting and say, what the hell is going on here? And I just made this, here's where we're going to go. Oh, come on. That's John Wayne stuff. And with all due respect to John Wayne, it doesn't apply in current environments. But there's a stigma that you have to be this. I can think of so many analogies, some associated with words I don't want to mention here, but I can do that sitting on a log. Okay, fine. All right. But when you're done honking, then I say this. I call those things fuzzies. Put them aside. And a good picture, I use this as well, is the olive tree, because it's so strong and so old and so resilient to winds and storms and things. And you can create your own olive tree. What I do is I take the roots, and the roots are your parents, the environment you were born in, and going up the tree and going into the individual branches, they're your parents, then you as parents and your children, and so forth on the family side. On the business side, it is as you grow up the management ladder, it is understanding how these components, how the branches come together. And in that center, again, if you can put this compass, mission, vision, strategy, structure, culture, it goes through the core, the stem of the olive tree, and then you can branch out, mission, vision, strategy, structure, culture. And when you feel that you are influencing these things, because one thing looking at it, but it's another thing influencing. And that calls for a bit of a transcendental attitude and feeling that goes beyond the intellect and goes into your ability, into the emotional sphere. I like Alan Watts was, for me, the most iconic philosopher, English of descent. He wrote so many books, which I can recommend, but he once said that music has the propensity to bypass the intellect and to embrace and touch and penetrate the emotions. And for a guitar player, someone who's well versed in playing the guitar will know that it's just about the strings that are struck as the pauses in between. And there's so many healthy analogies where you transform that into the olive tree. Well, it's watching and feeling the branches move when the wind blows. And if you can manage a company with that attitude, the strength of an olive tree, and you see those branches, think of what you can do. Now, I helped to grow a business from 36 million to 350 million in 5 years.
Wow.
In Europe. And how did I do that? It was the grassroots, getting the approval of the executive team, having a mission, vision, strategy, structure, how I can do it, and taking this out into the countries where the business happens through workshops, through communication, but through the message, look, I am representing and I am asking your help to implement where this company will go. We have a clearly defined mission, vision, strategy, and then when you say, and by the way, because when you go to the countries, you better know how to talk to the account managers. And I'll tell you, when you talk about the compensation architecture, that's when they take out their pads and they're already calculating their next year's income. But if you say, look, this is aligned with the strategy of the company, that's where it goes cluck. Because then the people who get paid for moving the business forward, they say, you know what, I work for a cool company because we have a mission, vision, strategy, and that's how I get paid.
And it's not only on paper, right? So when the people feel that and they feel the energy, and energy is so really the most important thing also. So then I can imagine, yeah, that works pretty well, no?
It does.
If I can really inspire them and say, okay, I have a big vision and mission, and you can feel that daily in our daily practice, right? How we act with each other, how our culture is in the company, and how we deal with our customers as well, of course. So then it has a foundation to grow.
And after a few years of practicing this, it just becomes so much a part of you. I remember in a senior management role in an IT company, we had a real challenge in selling a major project, hardware, software services to a major German bank. And I remember going there with my team, and the head of purchasing met us in the lobby, and he said, there's 6 of you. So before we go anywhere, give me your business cards, but I want to know who is the decision maker here. And I was the decision maker. And he said, you and I will go upstairs. Sorry, you folks can have a coffee. We'll take care of you in the lobby. And we went upstairs, and he made it very tough for me. But I already knew going into the meeting what our offer was, and I already knew how far I would go. And we expect with this investment 20%. And I said, well, sir, I'm here because I am the decision maker. The buck stops here, and I'm not trying to impress you, but here's what I can offer you because I've already fixed it in my mind. Our best deal with what we are delivering for you, and it's not just the price. It's a long-term commitment. We are, in practical terms, daily partners because our systems are at the very core, the umbilical core of your transactions. And for this, we will go 13.5%. And quite frankly, I'm prepared to walk away. That's it. And that's after very careful. I have gone through this with the board of directors, and this is our decision. But I'll tell you, you're getting much more than a contract. And we won.
Yeah, it sounds like a really very sharp focus you had when you went into the meeting, right? You had a clear vision and your focus, and you were pretty clear what you want to see as an outcome.
Well, it's so important that you get the acceptance of your team. They knew that when push came to a shove, I was the person they could send in with confidence. But if we had to walk away, I was the person who could defend our decision with upline management.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you call decision making. And if you have P&L responsibility, well, that's part of the job. But part of the job is not only the P&L, it's being a leader. And I've already discussed what I think it takes to fill those shoes. And I gave you a practical example of how I look to make it work.
Yeah. And so also a lot about communication, right? Because sometimes it's really the communication part which is messing things up because people just don't know about the real vision, mission, strategy, and so on. So they cannot follow you best, or there's too many assumptions going around.
Manuela, if you don't mind, and please just call me back when I'm too far out of the chain here. What I will say for global companies, and having had European-wide responsibility, it is inevitable that you take the message into the countries where the business happens. It is clear, and you come equipped with mission, vision, strength, these messages. But what I can tell you, and that's what is such a pleasure working in Europe, each country is different. The workshops that I held in Finland, Sweden, France, Portugal, Spain, Italy, they were very different. The core message the same. But in interactive workshops, you have to take into account the local culture and the market idiosyncrasies. Now, I now have fun telling my students how it was and doing workshops in Italy. And you imagine presenting the basic structure. Here's the mission, visions, and then the interactive piece. What do you think? Well, in Italy, Mr. Sargeant, I think it is a very good place to be, but you must understand that in Italy it's so different. We do it with passione. France. Monsieur, it is all well and good what you say. And yes, we respect your Western approach, but you must understand that in France, it is very complicated. You must have this sensuality for the customers. In Portugal, well, Mr. Sargeant, it is complicated, very complicated. You have to love doing this. And I will say to anyone who is international or has a European function or global function, understand the importance of local market idiosyncrasy and that you have to feel the culture of where the business is happening for your company. Top down, just try to force through measures, seldom work. You have to have the compassion. Okay, sorry for that transgression.
So you were telling us so much about your experiences and your vision and your mission and your strategy. So thank you. Thank you so much for that very rich interview and all the deep insights you're giving us. For the closing, let's ask you to maybe give a call to action now for change. So what would be the one message finally from all what you were telling us and all your experience? What would be the central message you want to bring out right now?
Call to action, call to change. And bear in mind, everyone I think knows that there are two types of changes. There's incremental and frame breaking. Incremental is where you need to fine tune your strategy or your structure. Frame breaking is this alignment process where you have to go through and realign the mission, vision, strategy, structure, and so forth. And that process usually takes a good year. Maybe 1 month in the planning, but 10, 12 months in the execution to really see. It's like trying to navigate or turn the Titanic. So the call to action is to emphasize holistic thinking, but doing what one loves with a passion. And again, I share with my students and clients, aim and shoot the arrow, allowing for the elements, wind, rain, and so forth, that they will influence the arrow. But by your pulling the bow and aiming, you're thrusting the arrow forward. And that's your determination. So call to action is have this holistic thinking, but whatever you do it with a passion. That's really important. The other thing I would say, and I've already emphasized, the importance of doing daily meditations, 20 minutes, feeling the here and the now, living in the here and the now. And I tell my students and clients, don't forget to smile, laugh. And I'll close with this. I posted recently and I said to the general community, I have it written here, Justice, faith, passion, love are aligned like a piercing arrow, shaping our destiny and guided by our determination.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lee Sargeant. Thank you for being here with us today. Get so many insights. Thank you. So, yeah, let's take my space back. So I'm energized again, have all my energy with me. And yeah, close this episode for today, for this session. And I hope you were taking away a lot of things as our audience. And yeah, follow us on Spotify and all the podcast channels. And yeah, I wish you to really also keep your passion for your soul mission to go your path in the world and create a healing temple together. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
In space, in the here and the now.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you, Manuela. Have a great day.